Hey Mike, you got any new sighting reports that come into the museum lately?
Yeah, we had a report just last week. We're now in the off season up here in the redwoods in the mountains, so the tourists aren't coming in very thick anymore. So the campsites are relatively sparse of campers, especially during the week. Well, a lady came in and told me that she and her two children, they're about 4 and 8 years old, camped up in Big Basin in the Redwood Park. They said that she arranged to have a tent cabin for 3 days. She got the one that was real close to the hospitality trailer, thinking, well, good, there'll be somebody there close by because we're going to be fairly alone in the park. And she picked a spot also that was right up against the forest and near a creek, as opposed to inside the park surrounded by other campsites. Anyway, she said that during the day, while they were there, she had heard some sounds, and she said it sounded like she heard more than once. She heard what sounded like a limb breaking. She also said that she heard some random knocks, and then at about well, she went to bed. She's in a tent cabin. You roll down the canvas on the outside, and it latches, and then you can't really open it from the inside. You can see through the cracks if you make an effort. But it's just canvas, and then it's wood down on the bottom half of the wall. And so she said that she went to bed, the two kids were sound asleep. She woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and she said that she heard something approach. She said that she could hear the footfalls. They were very definitely, it was bipedal. She said it sounded more like a person than any other animal, but the foot sounds were quite, very pronounced. She said whatever it wasn't being stealthy, because she said apparently was circumnavigating her tent cabin. It was kind of walking around, going on different sides, so she felt like she was being stalked, and it was very uncomfortable. She was very worried about it. Oh, I forgot to mention, the host that was supposed to be in the trailer next to her, he was out of the area. He was not there. She was very much alone with her two kids. And so she decided to go out the front door, and she grabbed her keys and was rattling them and shaking them as she went out the door, and she ran to and put them in the ignition and turned the ignition, which set off some bells and lights flashing. And so she was looking to see if she could spot an animal or a person. And whatever it was, it ran around to the backside of the tent cabin. She couldn't see it. It didn't appear to leave. She didn't hear it run away. So kids are inside, so she went back inside the tent cabin, and she said that she sat there. And, she heard it walking around, and then at one point she said it stopped still. And she said, I could swear that it could have been as close as 3 feet, 4 feet from me, just on the other side of the wall of the tent cabin, right out there. But she said, I was terrified to try and open the canvas or anything to take a look. I just didn't want to call attention to myself. So I was just real quiet, and I sat there and listened until the sun came up. And at some point I dozed off, and it apparently went away. And so she came in here to tell me about this. She was going to be staying up there for 2 more days, but what she did was she went right down into town and rented a motel room, because she had already prepaid for the tent cabin. So they would go up in the daytime and hang out there when it's nice and bright and sunny out, and then at night when they went to bed, they came and stayed in the motel. They didn't stay in the tent. She didn't want another night like that first one. So she asked me when she was in here in the museum telling me about this. She said, I've heard that the Bigfoot seem to be more amicable around children and women, that they'll come closer and seem to have an affinity for women and children. I said, well, yeah. I said, it's probably testosterone. They know that males are going to be more confrontational, that women and children are something they don't have to fear. And I said also, some natives up in Canada claim that in the tradition of their family histories that sometimes squaws would disappear and return and then give birth to hairy babies, and that these were carried out and left in the forest for the Sasquatch to rise. Now, of course, that's that's a story, and that could very well be a myth or a legend. But anyway, it's part of what's talked about and is suggested. And so she said then, she had a feeling about that. She said, well, that night when this thing was stalking me, she said, it was the worst, most extreme part of my menstrual flow for the month. I was bleeding heavily at times.